For the next several years, we can largely expect to see several variants of Kang the Conqueror make their inevitable debuts, from the more sinister, malicious, and outright brutal tyrants to the more benevolent iterations from across the multiverse. As of now, we have only met one official version of the Conqueror, that being He Who Remains from the finale of Loki, and his minimal screen time means that this particular variant is something of an enigma. While we know he is one of the more benevolent variants of Kang, and understand that he has the best intentions at heart, there is still so much to be revealed about his past, and the past of He Who Remains in particular. We don't as of yet know what he did during the multiversal conflict before weaponizing Alioth the Usurper, nor do we know which universe he originally came from. There are, however, several clues to his past in his brief appearance, and one such clue might point specifically to his universe of origin. So, stick with us today, watchers of the Marvel Multiverse, and let's see if we can't find the home universe from which He Who Remains originated. First though, according to our analytics, many of you that have passed by our universe have yet to subscribe, so if you've been enjoying the daily Marvel theories, be sure to reach out and crush that subscribe button. Now, let us begin. It's important to establish that each Kang variant comes from their own unique timeline with their own experiences, as well as histories, and most importantly, their own technology, which is largely specified to the universe that they come from. There are certainly similarities between variants, and there is definitely a considerable amount of overlap between different versions of Kang, but at the end of the day, each variant is their own unique individual who each grew up in a different circumstance, which helped to inform their upbringing and shape who they ultimately became. Warrior Kang, who is set to make his debut in Quantumania, is said to have been a very physically intense approach to combat, indicating that this Kang's upbringing involved a much more in-depth physical training regimen, and this precedent goes back to the original comic book lines as well in the different Kangs. If we are to look at the differences between universes that we know and compare them to what we know about He Who Remains, then we can get a better understanding of the universe in which this Kang grew up, influencing what kind of technology he had available to him at the time and which type of soldier he became. For instance, if we compare the universe of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man to that of the Fox Fantastic Four, then we can see a clear technological disparity between the two respective universes. In fact, Tobey Maguire's universe might not even have a version of Kang native to this timeline, if there is not an iteration of Reed Richards also available in this universe, showing just how drastically each universe can affect the type of Kang that they ultimately produce. While we don't know if Kang exists on this timeline, we can't guarantee that Reed Richards is present until we formally meet or either hear about him. So from here, we have to look at the technology that He Who Remains uses, and despite only being present in a single episode of Loki, the technology that He Who Remains uses is prevalent throughout the entirety of the Loki series, not just when He Who Remains is physically on screen. As the founder of the TVA, the organization was built on Kang's technology, and the gear that the Minutemen use are most likely indicative of what He Who Remains has during his time in the war. When he demonstrates how he has met his variants, he shows several versions of Kang fighting with the very same batons that the TVA use, hinting that this was his weapon of choice and supporting the theory that the TVA uses his equipment as well. So which universe demonstrates technology that most closely resembles that he used by the TVA and during the war, and also has a confirmed iteration of Reed Richards which Kang will ultimately descend from? We believe we have an answer. It appears as if the universe which most closely resembles the technology used by the TVA is none other than Earth 838, showcased in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. If He Who Remains comes from the universe that has already been introduced, then this one in particular makes the most sense for two main reasons. First off, this is one of the few universes where we know Reed Richards definitively exists, and as the several times great-grandfather of Kang the Conqueror, Reed Richards is integral for Kang's existence and his origin. This essentially all but confirms that Earth 838 does in fact have a variant of Kang present in the 31st century, and where he is in the multiverse as of now is currently completely unclear. Both known Spider-Man universes, as well as the Fox X-Men franchise and several others, do not have any confirmed iteration of Reed Richards, meaning that it's possible that Kang doesn't even exist on these timelines to begin with unless something more about these universes is revealed in the next few years. Earth 838, however, most likely has a Kang, and even though this Reed is dead, we know that his children have already been born, and his bloodline is secure. This means that their Kang is currently out there somewhere, just waiting to be found. Secondly, the technology most closely resembles that of the TVA, particularly the time doors that the Minutemen use to travel across the multiverse. And I hope a lot of you know where we're going with this. These gateways are perhaps the most vital tools that the Minutemen use, as it not only allows them to travel through time, but space as well, which will be important in just a moment. In addition to relocating them across the timeline, they can travel throughout different points in physical space within the same universe. When we are first introduced to Reed Richards in the Multiverse of Madness, he arrives by using a very similar gateway, which many believe is the earliest iteration of these time doors, and it's speculated that this technology will eventually evolve into the multiversal gateways that we see in Loki as used by the TVA, and as pioneered by none other than a Kang variant in He Who Remains. Since Reed Richards didn't presumably travel through time to get there, this shows shared capabilities between his portal technology and the TVA, although the TVA likely evolved the time-hopping capabilities long after Reed Richards' death. Recently, we published a full video on how this particular variant of Reed Richards is setting the stage for Kang tech, which we recommend you check out, but given how unique each respective universe is, this seems to be the likeliest candidate. If this particular universe is the pioneer of TVA technology, then it makes logical sense that their iteration of Kang would be the one who founded the TVA in the first place, firmly cementing this variant as He Who Remains if this theory is true. And He Who Remains, the final Kang variant of the previous multiversal war, stems from Earth 838. We proposed that when this version of Kang began traveling across the multiverse, he used the technology of his several times great-grandfather and the Baxter Foundation as the starting point of his tools and weaponry. He may have refurbished these teleporters in order to give them the ability to travel throughout time as well, and he later passed this technology onto his own corporation when the TVA came to be. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of this theory? Do you think He Who Remains is from Earth 838? And if not, then where do you think He Who Remains is originally from? Where do you think the Kang from Earth 838 is right now? And do you think he will ever make an appearance? As always, my friends, thank you so much for continuing to watch and support the channel. Hit that subscribe button to assemble and join our team, and I hope that you have a great day.